Hi, everyone. In this presentation, we're going to talk about description as a rhetorical strategy and how it helps develop your ideas and makes your writing more vivid. So, for this first essay, you will be using description in your narrative. So, why do we use description? Description helps us show instead of just tell. Compare these two examples. It was a hot day versus the heat from the sun enveloped me like thick burning walls closing in on me, quickly sending small beads of sweat streaming down the sides of my head. That second sentence shows us what the heat feels like, making it more vivid for the reader rather than just telling us that, oh, it was a hot day. Description also invites readers to experience something with you. Whether it's a memory, a hot day, a delicious meal, or a loved one, you help your reader feel what you felt. That makes your writing more impactful and engaging. Description also makes our ideas less abstract or general and more concrete. We rely on real sensory details, what something looked like, felt like, sounded like. So, for instance, rather than just saying, my grandmother's food brought me comfort, you could describe the specific smells, tastes, and textures that take you back to those moments in which you felt that comfort from that meal. So let's say we want to take an abstract or general idea like loneliness and convey that in our writing using description. Maybe we're describing a memory at the beach and we want to convey that sense of loneliness. The setting sun had cast long shadows of the clouds upon the deserted shore. The rhythmic crash of the waves against the vast expanse of sand echoed through the air. I looked up and saw a white bird soaring overhead, alone in its quest for food. A solitary duk-duk appeared in the sand near my feet and slowly began its inching towards the still palm trees. This paints a picture of a quiet, lonely beach, and the imagery helps communicate that feeling of loneliness without ever saying, it feels lonely. The underlying words here, they all help contribute to that impression or mood of loneliness. So, how do we develop our descriptions? A good description appeals to the senses. Give your reader something they can see, hear, smell, touch, and taste. This is what helps them really connect with your writing. Do you remember that original Linda's Coffee Shop? Here's a strong example of description using the senses. In this paragraph, I describe the old Linda's Coffee Shop. Notice that I've attempted to include all the senses. These details place us right in the scene and create emotional connection to the memory. However, you do not need to include sensory details from all five senses to create an impactful description. We can also describe things objectively or subjectively. Objective descriptions are more factual, like for a report or informative essay. Subjective descriptions are more personal and emotional. So, for example, an informative essay on the environmental effects of building a fire range on Guam's northern lens aquifer would need an objective description, whereas a narrative essay about a cherished memory at the old Linda's coffee shop would require more subjective descriptions. Objective descriptions focus on facts and clear specific details without emotion. If you're explaining how a heart works or what a computer chip looks like, you want to stay accurate, clear, and neutral. Another example is when you're giving someone directions to a place like, let's say, Payless Manilao. The directions would be objective. We don't really need emotion involved. We just need to provide clear and helpful details. The same would apply to describing the Northern Lens aquifer in that hypothetical informative essay you might write. We would provide objective facts about the aquifer, such as the size, the terrain, the flow direction. Subjective descriptions also provide details but include how you feel about the subject. These types of descriptions are common in personal writing and narrative essays. You're still being descriptive, but you're also sharing emotion or mood. With subjective descriptions, we know how the writer feels about the subject they're writing about. Here is an example of a subjective description in which the reader gets a sense of what the writer thinks about the subject that they're writing about. The town seemed to be weary and tired, with its dilapidated buildings and weathered storefront signs. The sidewalks were cracked with previous weight of countless footsteps that once filled the streets with life. However, the iron street lamps still stood proudly, lining the main street and filling shadowed corners with a soft amber light. This example gives us a feeling of a tired, fading town, but there's still dignity in it. Right? The reader can feel the weight of time passing. right? And this kind of description draws us in emotionally, but we also understand that the writer sees that the town is old and fading, but they still respect it and they still see dignity in it. However, not all subjective descriptions are effective. Guam is a captivating gem that stirs the soul with its exquisite beauty and unique charm. Guam's allure extends beyond its physical beauty. It is a place where time seems to slow down, allowing you to fully embrace the tranquility of island life. So these words, captivating, exquisite, unique charm, tranquility, they sound really great, but based on this description, does the reader actually experience anything? Do they even know what Guam might look like? Probably not. We could take these words and replace Guam with any other place. This description could apply to Bali, Thailand, some places in the Philippines. So, therefore, adding more concrete details and referring to specific characteristics can make this description less abstract or general and make it more concrete. As always, we think about purpose. Why are we writing a certain essay or a certain description, right? So, your purpose for describing something helps guide what details to include. And always think about your audience. How much do they already know? What kind of details will matter to them? You may need to use only objective descriptions, only subjective descriptions, or a combination of both. It depends on your purpose and your audience. For example, describing Guam to convince tourists to visit will be different than describing it to argue for environmental protection of the island. Also, descriptions often aim to create one main idea or what we call dominant impression. That could be comfort, fear, nostalgia, or even love. But you don't have to use every sense equally to create a dominant impression. Just choose the ones that best support the overall mood or message that you want your reader to feel. So, for example, let's say we want to create a dominant impression or feeling of danger. Maybe we'll just focus strictly on physical sensations and sound. The wind howled through the trees, branches snapping like bones. The sky turned a heavy gray and the air pressed down on us like a warning. Description is usually arranged spatially, meaning by location or space. If we were to describe the villages of Guam, we would organize them spatially. So one way would be starting from the north to the south. So therefore, we start with the village of Jigo. You can also organize description by importance. So starting with like the most striking feature of something. So when describing a lion, we would describe the most important or striking characteristic first, such as the mane, the color of the fur, maybe the next important or striking feature would be the muzzle, then the eyes, and so forth. If we were to describe the villages of Guam, we could organize them by the most beautiful to the least. So maybe we might start with Inarahan. Lastly, descriptions can often use figurative language like similes, metaphors, and personification. You can include these in your writing as a way to describe. So, first, similes, they make a comparison between two things that are different using the words like or as. So, here in this example from Drake, he compares two things that are not alike, pizza and his heart. Metaphors also make a comparison between two things that are different, but they don't use words like or as. So, for example, all the world's a stage, we're comparing the world to a stage. Personification gives human qualities to non human things. So, the house groaned throughout the night. A house can't groan, but we give it that human quality of groaning.